Hello, how are you? How's everyone doing? Who's here first? Welcome, welcome. If you're joining on Facebook, thank you so much. Seabreeze and Lori are here first. Hey, Lori, you say my favorite modern day composer. You know about the Maple Leaf Rag. Very nice. So you can add to this discussion, Lori. Thank you. Seabreeze, how you doing? Jennifer, wow, who does that look like? Tiger Woods, maybe? Oh, really? Hmm. Now that's an interesting. Yeah, he looks familiar, but yeah, I could kind of see what you say, like a little bit of the Tiger Woods. I can see a little bit of that. Interesting. Wow. Hello, CWS. Welcome, welcome. You say he was one of the best performers playing ragtime. So you all have some background on the subject of Scott Joplin. 420 Wild Dragon, much love to you. I hope you're doing well. Hey, Sean. Sean is here. Hi, Sean. Linda's here. Hello, Linda. Welcome. Jamie, hello. Thank you for coming by. And who else is here? Kathy's here. Hi, Kathy. Good evening. And DeWolf. Hey, DeWolf. Nice. I'm glad you caught the live. Welcome, welcome. And is that Flower Girl Apothecary Oh, I love it. So nice to see you. Okay, so I'll jump in to the subject matter, which is Scott Joplin, the entertainer. And I came across some information I thought that we should want to know. It's right up our sort of research alley that we've been working in. Is that Matthew? Hey, Matthew, welcome. How you doing, yo-yo? Thanks for hanging out tonight. So nice to see you. So let's dive in. And I call this the American Music Trust, which it could actually be a series that we look at the American Music Trust. I'll be talking about that a bit. I had been talking about it ever since I heard Kev. You know, I bring up Kev Gillespie all the time. I feel like he's my cousin, okay? But anyway, he talked about the trust. I think he mentioned the Music Trust in particular. And that got me thinking, the American Music Trust. That is something that I am very interested in looking into more. So my research begins with Scott Joplin. So all roads, when it comes to American music, they would originate from this man, Scott Joplin. And I will tell you about him. We'll kick his wiki narrative and some of the other articles that I found on him. But let's just start with if we were just, in school and they were telling us something about him, because again, for anybody who's new, I already know, and we know in the chatmosphere that Wikipedia is fake news. We know it. We know it's controlled information. But it's good to see what the narrative is. And a lot of times when we read the Wikipedia, you can find the inconsistencies even with their narrative. And I know people contribute to the pages and things like that, but you could look across the board and see other articles that would either confirm or change things, information. So it's a place of a jump off point, unless you have any things like books you may have. I don't have any books on the era of ragtime, but I think I might want to look into them. If anybody has a book they can recommend that deals with this period of time when it comes to the American Music Trust, please share, please. All right. So, okay. So, oh, this is how you pronounce your name. Ishel. I love that name. Hi, Ishel. Welcome back. Let's give some love to Ishel. And you're here. Oh, nice, nice. Okay, so Scott Joplin. He is considered a pioneer. They call him the piano man. The piano man, the entertainer. If anybody knows of a movie that you have possibly watched that uses the music of Scott Joplin, go ahead and share it. Share it. Okay, so let me go to the Wikipedia. Let's kick it. All right, I will stop the screen and share. I hope it's not making a lot of noise when I tap the buttons. I know that can sound a little loud. And if the sound is good, let me see. Does the sound sound good right now? I'll wait until someone lets me know if the sound is good. Okay, thank you, Sherry. All is good. Okay, Sherry gave me the okay. All right, so I'll go ahead with his Wikipedia. So for anybody who's not familiar with Scott Joplin, just know that I don't think it's something that was readily available to us. I did not know about him. This is something for me that I'm like, wow, this is a discovery. Like, it feels new. I've heard his name, but I have to be honest, I knew nothing about him. And I only knew the music from the movie that I'll get into when I read the Wikipedia, but I didn't know the origin, where it all goes back. So this Scott Joplin, he was born in 1868. So everyone, we are dealing again in the 1800s. So for anybody who's new to the 1800s, I call the 1800s a person of interest, because this is the time the time frame that you can begin to excuse me, use as a beginning reference for history, because anything dating prior to the 1800s, for me personally, I feel that I'm chasing shadows, and I feel like I can't anchor anything down in more of the soil, the land. And this is why, for me, I have to focus from the 1800s until now. That has been very helpful. And you can share with me if you have had the same epiphany, learning that it doesn't matter. And that's come through listening to people like Kev. You know, if you keep going back into the ancient, back into what he calls it, time immemorial. And that's what this is when you go past the 1800s. I would say the 1700s, for me, I could go maybe back there. And I know I read the Magna Carta, which goes back earlier. But when it comes to American history, that is the place where I stay, is the 1800s, and, you know, move up and down the timeline from now to the 1800s. Okay, so this is a man born 1868. Now, the interesting thing is here they are saying was an African American. And I want to take some time out to talk about the designation of African American and how it doesn't lead to an identity of who we're talking about, because Africa is much like the US corporation. Africa is a corporation. It is you could say nation states that were put together by whoever, King Leopold and all those people that invaded. They created these things like Africa, you know, and it's very nebulous because if you say you're African American, where in Africa? Because Africa is a corporation. It is a continent, they tell us. And it's ridiculous to say African American because, quite frankly, Elon Musk is African American. Elon Musk. So if we're talking about trying to pin down what a race of people is, what a group, what a nation, you can't learn it by using these terms. So I'm annoyed that they would say he's African American in this narrative, because when did people start getting called African American? Definitely not in the 1800s. They weren't calling people African Americans. So, okay, I won't belabor the point, but it is annoying nonetheless. So, he was a composer and a pianist. Because of the fame achieved for his ragtime compositions. Now, ragtime is described as a musical style that flourished from the 1890s to 1910s. Its cardinal trait is its syncopated or ragged rhythm. Ragtime was popularized during the early 20th century by composers such as Scott Joplin and I'll say James Scott. These two men were the fathers of ragtime. This guy, Joseph Lamb, I would say is an infiltrator into this musical genre. I am not going to give him the credit of being a father of ragtime. So the two men, James Scott and Scott Joplin, very interesting, right? Okay, so he was dubbed the King of Ragtime. Now, they say during his brief career. Now, that is the red flag, is that he had a brief career. Now, I want to treat this as a crime, okay? So if you could put on your Agatha Christie, I don't know, what are all the other detectives? I need you to help me by putting on your detective hat right now as we read through this narrative, because I see a crime, and I'll explain more as I go on. Okay, he had a brief career. He wrote over 40 original ragtime pieces. Okay, that's a lot of music. All right, 40 original ragtime pieces, 1 ragtime ballet, and 2 operas. One of his first and most popular pieces is the Maple Leaf Rag. And I will go to the Maple Leaf Rag and I will play it for us. How does that sound? Because it sounds groovy. I love the energy, right? We talk frequency a lot, right? What do you all think? That's right, Anne. It was from the movie The Sting. I'll get into that part of the narrative, okay? So that was called The Maple Leaf Rag. All right, T. So back to the narrative here. All right, let me get the picture. You loved it, Linda? Good, good. I loved it too. Hey, Karen. Karen's here. Welcome, our beautiful sister. Thank you for joining. Yeah, oh, you liked it too, the wolf? I always admired those days. Yeah, I love that time period now too. Okay, so back to this narrative. So we listened to the Maple Leaf Rag. All right. That became the genre's first and most influential hit, later being recognized as the archetypal rag. Okay, so a rag again is the style of ragtime composed by this pioneer, Scott Joplin, and the Missouri School of Ragtime Composers. These compositions were first considered classic by Joplin's publisher. So this is the archetypal music. Okay, so Joplin considered ragtime to be a form of classical music and largely disdained the practice of ragtime, such as that in honky tonk. So, what is honky tonk? It says honky tonk is both a bar that provides country music for the entertainment of its patrons and the style of music played in such establishments. I'd probably have to get to the whole history. I won't get caught up there. Okay. Joplin grew up in a musical family of railroad laborers. So I want to stop. A musical family. Again, can we use our detective skills? This is the 1800s. This is a man who is composing and creating the music that basically every other form of music in America grew out of. All right. So we're talking about the father of the American Music Trust. So he grew up with a musical family. He was taught by his mother and father. They were musical. They just were musical people. Now, railroad laborers. What does that sound like to you? Pullman. Do you know about the Pullman of that time? I'm going to get into these things in detail, but I just want to make a note that there's a lot more that can be drilled down into, but I just want to make a note that we have to look at the narrative of, does this make sense? That you have a group of people that were enslaved, and it was described in the way that we were told. How would they then be so musical? Like, where did this musical ability come from? Because it didn't come from Africa. or they would have been playing African. Did the music I played just now, did it sound like African music? I want to ask somebody. Did that sound like African music, that maple leaf rag? Tell me. I just want to know, because we are being detectives right now. If he's African American and he created music here in America, okay? Everything grew out of ragtime. Did ragtime music that I just played, does that sound like anywhere in Africa? I'll wait. Tell me. Have you heard music like that in Africa? Hey, Gemini Love, thanks for coming by. No drums, right? That's what we typically hear. Drums. Thank you for that observation. Anybody else want to chime in? Have you ever been anywhere and heard music like that? Okay, DeWolf says indentured servants sounds more accurate. Yeah, I'm calling them prisoners of war. Okay, not even close, Anne says. Okay, so that's something that we can dispel right now. Okay, and that's why I like to look at the narrative, because you can tear this narrative down. They told us in the beginning he was African American, which tells us that he came over the typical way we hear on a boat as a, beaten down, captured slave, speaking another language, I would think, right? An African, if they want to call it an African, where in Africa. So, okay, that would make sense, right? You come out of slavery and you compose that song that we just listened to. Really? Okay. Yeah. All righty. Let me keep going on, because this is how we are going to investigate these lies. And we're not going to continue being lied to, are we? They're not going to, the jig is up. Okay. So Joplin, again, grew up in a musical family of railway laborers in Texarkana, Arkansas. So let me ask you, do you think you have did you expect lots of, people like him to be in Arkansas? That's a pretty widespread, right? Arkansas to the South, the American South. Okay. So developing his own musical knowledge, that means he didn't go to school. Okay. He developed his own musical knowledge with the help of, well, they do say local teachers, but in one of the narratives, it says he learned at home. He learned the music at home because he had musical parents. Now, there was a teacher that comes into the scene here of the narrative, and that's where I put my red flag up. And I want to see if the red flag goes up for you in this narrative. Okay, so while in Texarkana, he formed a vocal quartet. So he formed a quartet. And he taught mandolin and guitar. So we're talking about someone who is multi-instrumental. He is a pianist. He taught mandolin and guitar. During the late 1880s, he left his job as a railroad laborer and traveled the American South as an itinerant musician. He went to Chicago. Here we go. Buckle in, everybody. He went to Chicago for the World's Fair of 1893. I have to clap when I say that. This is where the crime comes into question. Okay. Yeah, they could afford a piano. Good one, Anne. Help me. Tell me the things that are sticking out for you that do not make sense. Thank you very much. Gifted and talented, right? Yeah, that's right. Hey, Tina. Welcome, Tina, a very talented man. Hey, B Wolf. Welcome. You're not late. You're still here. Hey there. Karen says music is sound and vibrations. Yeah, not the World's Fair, Tina. Are you ready, Tina? Can you go, everybody? I'll give you a minute. Go get your tinfoil turbans right now, because we're about to get into some conspiracy theory, okay? Isn't this Very convenient. Uh-oh, DeWolf says, uh-oh, the World's Fair. Look at that. We already found the crime. I feel like a crime detective right now. I see a crime. I smell a crime. If you see something, say something. Let me get a little water and I'm going to continue reading this narrative, right? It's a doozy. Now, if I read this before, I wouldn't have caught any of it. I just would have, I don't know. It wouldn't have stuck out. Now the stuff is just, is right there, everyone. Right there. Okay, so wowzers. Okay, let's go back to this because it takes a little bit to digest. He went to Chicago for the World's Fair of 1893, which played a major part in making ragtime a national craze by 1897. So he goes to the World's Fair in 1893. Just make a note of that. It became the music, which is the foundational music of America, became a national craze by 1897. Okay, Joplin moved to Sedalia, Missouri in 1894 and earned a living as a piano teacher. Okay, this is somebody who has employment. He works in his art and he worked for the railroad. But I'm just saying, we're told some other things. Okay. Anyway, in 1894, he worked as a piano teacher. There he taught future ragtime composers. So he actually developed other people. Now, this is what I want you to pay attention to right now, too. He began publishing music in 1895. Again, he published his own music. He was an independent artist, all right? And publication of his Maple Leaf Rag in 1899 brought him fame. So this is a man who is known. He is known. Okay? All right. This piece had a profound influence on writers of ragtime. It also brought Joplin a steady income for life. Make a note of that. A steady income for life. That should have been something that a person like him should have absolutely experienced, wouldn't you think? Though he did not reach this level of success again and frequently had financial problems. Okay? What are you hearing? Let me stop for a minute. What are you hearing right now? He should have expected to make a living for his life. But it tells us that he had many financial troubles. This is a person who publishes his own music. Thank you, Tina. A slave allowed to publish music, not fitting the narrative, right? Isn't it pretty crazy, this narrative, now that you... Wait, did I say it right, Lori? That's Sedalia. Sedalia. You're a Missouri girl. Okay, I have to practice, Lori, okay? You have to forgive me. I'm a Philly girl. McPeak says, Sean says, my wife's family is from, wait, let me say how Lori says it. Sedalia. Sedalia. Did I say it right? Like a Missouri girl? Long A? Sedalia? Sedalia? Oh, I'm going to have to practice. You have to forgive me. Okay, so Sean has some connections to Sedalia. Okay, so not adding up for Tina. I I feel you, Tina. Okay, so he frequently had financial problems and he did not reach the level of expected success. In 1901, Joplin moved to St. Louis, where he continued to compose, publish, and regularly perform in the community. The score to his first opera, okay, everybody, did you hear me? He wrote operas. Operas, okay? The first person in America to write an opera. He started the genre opera. Do you see where I'm going right now? A guest of honor. It was confiscated. All right. Who do you think confiscated his score to his first opera? Why would it get confiscated? It's called a guest of honor. Let me hit this hyperlink. A guest of honor is the first opera created by celebrated ragtime composer Scott Joplin. The focus of the production was the 1901 White House dinner hosted by President Theodore Roosevelt for the civil rights leader and educator Booker T. Washington. Everybody, are you seeing a lot of things? I'm going to get into Booker T. Washington. I'm going to read a quote from Booker T. Washington after I get through this. Remind me if I forget, but I want to read a quote of his. I thought it was maybe a little snippet of the song, but I'm sure I could find it another time. Yeah. Anne says the Vatican. So you thought the Vatican might have confiscated it? Okay. Maybe. CWS says he was too influential in his music and popularity and some wanted to take him down a notch. Okay. Yeah, that's why I said help me, because we're looking at a crime scene. We're a cold case. I'm opening a cold case. Okay. And yeah. Okay, so back to the crime. A guest of honor, his first opera, confiscated along with his belongings in 1903 for non-payment of bills and is now considered lost. Oh, no wonder I couldn't find a snippet. It has been lost, probably burned, right? Okay, so why would this man have a situation where he's not paying his bills? It sounds like he had regular work. Doesn't it to you? Does that make any sense that he would lose his belongings for non-payment of bills? I'm just saying. All right. So we are watching the opening of a cold case. I don't know if anybody else is covering this. Let me know. I want to share this out, like the video, subscribe. We want to get the algorithms to favor this kind of content because we need more people thinking about this right now, because we need to get to the bottom of this. Okay. This is something that happened not too long ago, and we need redress because this is the American Music Trust. And we should all be interested. Gambling, Linda says. Yeah, gambling, but I'm not sure if that was something that he got involved with. From the narrative, I don't know. I didn't pick up any gambling narratives, and like I looked at a lot of different articles and things, so it would just be a speculation. But, if somebody wants to take your intellectual property, they could find a narrative to create, right? Oh, he owed this bill, right? So you have to take his belongings and his intellectual property, and then now it's lost. Okay. All right. Nothing to see here, everybody. It sounds real kosher. Okay. In 1907, Joplin moved to New York City to find a producer for a new opera. He attempted to go beyond the limitations of the musical form that made him famous. Now we're talking a famous person too. You know, I have to keep remembering he's famous, but without much monetary success. So he's not able to monetize his creative content. I wonder why. Okay, his second opera was called Tremonisha, which is funny, okay? This sounds like a name of today's times, right? So Tremonisha is an opera. It's sometimes referred to as a ragtime opera, though Joplin did not refer to it as such, and it encompasses a wide range of musical styles. Let's see if it has a little snippet for us to listen to. I guess not. Okay, we'll try to get a snippet at another time. Okay, so where was I? Okay, so his second opera, Tremonisha, was never fully staged during his life. Okay, his second opera was never fully staged during his life. So this is a man who had his first opera confiscated and lost. His second opera was never fully staged, and we're talking about New York City. So it should be no problem to stage something in New York, right? Okay, so in 1916, and I want you to hear this, Joplin descended into dementia as a result of neurosyphilis. I'm going to leave it right there, and I'm going to wait to see what you all say. Do I have to repeat that? Let me repeat it for anybody who needs to take notes. In 1916, Scott Joplin, a famous man who writes and produces his own operas, okay, and composes them and teaches other people this style, he descends into dementia as a result of neurosyphilis. Neurosyphilis. All righty. What do you think? What do you think happened? Why would this man have neurosyphilis? That he's suffering dementia. He's not even 50 years old. He's 48 years old, descending into dementia. There you are, Tina. Thank you. Tina understands the assignment for sure. There you are, Tina. That's what I needed to see. The connection. Thank you for making that connection, Tina. All righty. There you go, Gemini love. There you are. Where have we heard that before? On syphilis and black men. Tuskegee experiment. Okay, here we go. There you are. Tuskegee Institute. There we are. I'm going to be doing some field trips and more research, and it will get into the Tuskegee experiments. As soon as I said this, I'm having trouble with the connection. Let me know if you could hear me. Anybody, let me know. As soon as I said that, it just started acting up. You know how it happens. All right, CWS, I see you over here. CWS says they steal his music, then gives a narrative. He's crazy, lies, rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. All right, nothing new under the sun. Do you see why we don't have to go back into let's look at the 1500s, the 1400s, the this hundreds? No, how about we look at the 1800s? How about we stay right there? How about we look at the 1800s? 2 grandmas ago. We don't have to go past 2 grandmas. Isn't that interesting? If you want to hang out in time immemorial, chasing shadows, be my guest. But I'm going to tell you, if you want to know what's going on right now, you do not need to go back too much further than 2 of your grandmothers. Just 2. Hey, Daryl. Daryl says they sent a known infected woman after him so they can get his sheet music. Okay. Yeah, Daryl, there you are. That could be something that could have been employed, is to send women, because that is a lot of times the most effective way to bring down a powerful, great man. Sorry, gals. You know I'm telling the truth, okay? Send in a woman to totally derail him, okay? Sorry, gals. It's the truth. Send in a 304. I'm not sure if he was that kind of guy. I can't really speak to his lifestyle, whatever was going on. I know he was married, and I know that, people of his type, they didn't get caught up in a lot of craziness. They were more lawful until, see, that's why we fell from grace. So it's interesting. So back to the narrative. So he has neurosyphilis in January 1917. He was admitted to a mental asylum and died there 3 months later at the age of 48. Joplin's death is widely considered to mark the end of ragtime as a mainstream music format. Over the next several years, it evolved with other styles into stride, jazz, and eventually swing. Okay? Joplin's music, I want you to listen, was rediscovered and returned to popularity in the early 1970s with the release of a million-selling album by Joshua Rifkin. So, again, Scott Joplin was in poverty. He was not able to monetize his music. But in the 1970s, somehow, because they tell us here that his music died. It was the death of him and his music until the 1970s. It was released by a man named Joshua Rifkin. Joshua Rifkin doesn't sound like a relative of Scott Joplin to me. Does he to you? I don't think I read that he had children. So how did Joshua Rifkin get a hold of Scott Joplin's music catalog? Can someone tell me? Because Joshua Rifkin made millions of dollars off of the music. Can somebody tell me how that sounds to you? An asylum. Okay, an asylum, Tina. Can you imagine? He's in an asylum. Doesn't remember things because they say it was neurosyphilis and he went into dementia. Isn't that convenient? Okay, so let's look at Joshua Rifkin. I want to know, who is Joshua Rifkin? Let me stop the screen and let's find out how this very fortunate man made millions of dollars. Let's just look and see. Because, I'm not making up anything. I'm just going to the sources that are out here, aren't I? I'm not hateful or anything like that. I'm just looking into this story because I didn't know about it. And I now want to know more about it because it's of interest to me. Okay, so let's look at Joshua Rifkin. Okay, Joshua Rifkin, he was born in 1944 in New York. Okay, in 1944. He is an American conductor, a keyboard player, and musicologist. He's a professor at Boston University. And let's see, he is best known by the general public, however, for having played a central role in the ragtime revival in the 1970s. With 3 albums he recorded of Scott Joplin's works. All right. So Rifkin's Joplin albums, the first of which is Scott Joplin Piano Rags in November 1970. So he was able to record a lot. So we're telling this, he sold 100,000 copies in the first year, and first million selling record. Became a Billboard chart at number 5 for the classical music. So that had to be a good thing for his bottom line. He won a Grammy. He was nominated for a Grammy. And what else? So Rifkin's work as a revivalist of Joplin's work immediately preceded the adaptation of Joplin's music by Marvin Hamlisch for the film The Sting. So Scott Joplin's music is now used in a film, The Sting. All right. Giving artists like Rifkin the opportunity to put Joplin's music on record. Isn't that nice of Mr. Rifkin? Thank you, Mr. Rifkin, for bringing back Scott Joplin's music. You're a good soul there. Created almost alone, the Scott Joplin revival. And I know he didn't do it to make money. He did it because it was just in his heart to bring back ragtime, a revival. So in 1990, Rifkin recorded a CD for the Decca label featuring rags by 2 of the other major ragtime composers. So he's real interesting like this. Okay, so let's see. Let's see what else is going on. So what else could we say about Mr. Rifkin? He went to Juilliard, so he's, really educated. He went to Brandeis, Harvard, Yale, I guess professoring, Boston University. All right. So he's doing pretty well for himself, okay? So that's Joshua Rifkin. Real nice guy. Okay. So what else do we know about Joshua Rifkin? Anything else we know about him? Has anybody heard of Joshua Rifkin? Anybody? Any thoughts? Yeah, so who gave him the music? This is why this is a crime. This is exactly why this is a crime. Okay, so let's look into Marvin Hamlisch, because that's another man who did pretty well monetizing Scott Joplin's music. So let's go to Marvin Hamlisch. So let's see what's going on there. All right, so this is Marvin Hamlisch. Let's hit his wiki. And let me see if it's okay. So Marvin Hamlisch was born in 1944 as well. How weird. So he and Joshua were both born in 1940. Wait a minute. Let me go back to Joshua Rifkin. Do you all remember? Yeah, weird. These men were both born in 1944. Just something to note. Okay, so born in 1944. He died, however, in 2012. I'm sure his estate is probably doing well having this type of accolade. So let's read. Marvin Hamlisch was an American composer and conductor. He received Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. So he's an EGOT, as they call it, EGOT, and Pulitzer Prizes. He was born in Manhattan to Jewish parents. His father was an accordionist and band leader. They say he was a child prodigy. He played the piano. And lots of movies here. Funny Girl with Barbara Streisand, My Fair Lady. He attended Queens College, earned a Bachelor's of Arts. And he's pretty, got a pretty good resume here. So I want to read about the part that he did for the bringing back of Scott Joplin's music. Let's see. Where is that? I don't see it. Let me see if it's here. Not much in his wiki. But okay, back to the Scott Joplin. The two people, again, that, okay, let me go back to this one. Most notably, The Entertainer. That's where we see Marvin Hamlish. In The Entertainer, a piece performed by pianist Marvin Hamlish, and now this received wide airplay. Treemonisha was finally produced to full, so they were able to produce Treemonisha, the one that he couldn't get to fully stage. So they were able to get it to fully stage. And it was produced to a wide and full acclaim in 1972. But in 1976, Scott Joplin was posthumously awarded a Pulitzer Prize. Wasn't that nice of them to give this man a Pulitzer Prize in 1976 after everyone made millions off of his music, making movies and scoring things? And isn't that something? Isn't that interesting? So there you are, Marvin Hamlish and Joshua Rifkin. Those are two names that could be attached to finding out what happened. What happened to Mr. Scott Joplin? Okay, so back to this narrative, because I want to play one more thing where we look at Mr. Joplin's, what we listen to. Okay, here's a early life, okay? Joplin was the second of 6 children born to Giles Joplin, a former slave from North Carolina, okay? Florence Givens, a freeborn African-American woman from Kentucky. All right, so got a lot of interesting biographers that are all over this narrative. So they're not agreeing with some details. All right. In 1880, the Joplins moved to Texarkana, Arkansas, where Giles worked as a railroad laborer. So his father, who was a slave, got a job as a railroad laborer, and Florence as a cleaner. Joplin's father played the violin for plantation parties in North Carolina, and his mother sang and played the banjo. So we're talking about a musical family here. So how would Joplin's father, how would he know how to play the violin? So he's playing the violin on the plantation, they tell us. And his mother is singing and playing the banjo. The banjo. All right, everybody. Does this sound African to you? Like an African family that plays violins and banjos? You tell me. Is it true where they're telling us all this stuff is originating out of Africa? Does it? I'm just asking. And if it's Africa, where in Africa? So it's just interesting, is all I'm saying now that I'm reading it. Okay, so his mother and father taught him. Okay, they gave him his rudimentary musical education. And they did it at the age of 7. He was playing the piano. At some point in the early 1880s, Giles Joplin left the family, they say, for another woman. So she had to support the family. And this is an interesting now part of this narrative. According to a family friend, this sounds like a CNN, doesn't it sound like CNN or TMZ? According to a family friend, the young Joplin was serious and ambitious, studying music and playing the piano after school. While a few local teachers aided him, he received most of his musical education from Julius Weiss, a German-born American Jewish music professor. So Julius Weiss, according to this narrative, lived in Germany and went through a lot of, I guess, a lot of problems in Germany there. But he helped the young Joplin. He tutored this young man. Okay. So it says this Joplin sent his former teacher gifts of money when he was old and ill until Weiss died. Okay. Does anybody see a problem with this? How did Scott Joplin send this teacher money until the teacher died? How did that happen if we were told that Scott Joplin lost his first opera because he couldn't pay his bills? And he couldn't even get his second opera to fully stage. And they say he died destitute, basically. So how is he sending Julius Weiss, a German-born American Jewish music professor, how is he sending this man money until the man died? Does this sound interesting to you? Do you see what I'm saying about something is awry? Gifts of money. Is it a good catch, Beowulf? It's only a good catch because this is the day of reckoning. This cannot continue to be hidden. I'm not making this up. Am I? I'm looking at their narrative. Tina, yes. Gifts of money when he was in an asylum. Exactly. Yeah, and if he had, hey, Mish, if he had dementia, it sounds weird. It sounds like he was supporting this teacher. So this teacher comes into his life later. How much impact did this person have on his life? His parents taught him from the age of 7. Why would he be transmitting money to somebody who is a teacher? Something is not right here. Something is not right. Okay, so at the age of 16, Joplin performed in a vocal quartet with 3 other boys in and around Texarkana. We learned that he plays the piano, the guitar, and the mandolin. So this is a person who plays many instruments. It's a lot here. But we're talking about We're talking about the Civil War because we got the Confederate States of America. Jefferson Davis mentioned here how he went around. Now this is where I want to come here. In 1893, while in Chicago again for the World's Fair, Scott Joplin performed a band. He formed a band in which he played cornet. So he played cornet too. And also arranged the band's music. So he plays and arranges. Although the World's Fair minimized the involvement of African Americans. I'll read it again. Although the World's Fair minimized the involvement of African Americans, Black performers still came to the saloons, cafes, and brothels. What does that sound like? They had brothels at the World's Fairs. That sounds like human trafficking. And the World's Fairs are internment camps, everyone. I want you to put that possibility on, that the World's Fairs are internment camps. And the brothels were human trafficking. The exposition was attended by 27 million visitors and had a profound effect on many areas of American cultural life, including ragtime. Although specific information is sparse, numerous sources have credited the Chicago World's Fair with spreading the popularity of ragtime. Joplin found that his music, as well as the other Black performers, was popular with visitors. By 1897, ragtime had become a national craze in U.S. cities and was described by the St. Louis Dispatch as a veritable call of the wild. Okay, isn't that something? They called it the call of the wild. Isn't that interesting? Let's listen to Bethina. How does that sound? Bethina. I can't hear it. And the sound is up loud. Okay, so wow. So he was married. He lived in Harlem. He suffered a lot, it says. Breakdowns, bankruptcies, worn out. Okay, by 1916, Joplin had developed tertiary syphilis, neurosyphilis, admitted to Manhattan State Hospital, a mental institution, and died on April 1st of syphilitic dementia at the age of 48. He was buried in a pauper's grave. This is a man who was famous, everyone. How is he buried in a pauper's grave? If anybody doesn't know what a pauper's grave is, it is a potter's field, pauper's grave, or common grave, is a place for the burial of unknown, unclaimed, or indigent people. Potter's field is of biblical origin, referring to Akeldama, stated to have been purchased after Judas Iscariot's suicide by the high priest of Jerusalem. You know the story, 30 pieces of silver. How would this man be buried in a potter's field? Isn't that disturbing? He was famous, and They say that the Chicago's World Fair, it made the whole genre popular. You know, when we hear about all those little operas and waltzes and all this stuff, where do you think that came from? Where's the origin? Something is amiss. Let me play The Entertainer for anybody who just needs a little reminder. Do you all hear an echo? How does it sound on your end? You have a sound delay? Okay, so I turned my mic off. I hope the echo wasn't there. So we know that sound when we hear it. A lot of us didn't know who Scott Joplin was. So this is a man who basically is the king of ragtime, who dies and is buried in a pauper's grave. Is buried like a person who had just nothing. I don't know how that happens. And then now so many people did so well off of this man's music. So it's interesting. I'm gonna be looking at a lot when it comes to this narrative, and probably really stay on this man and his story, because this would be the beginning of the American Music Trust. Okay. And it's interesting, they're giving his achievements influenced by classically trained German music teacher Julius Weiss. 11-year-old Scott Joplin. So how did this man get a hold of just a young Scott? I don't know. It's just really looking very, very weird. So what else? So they have a museum. If you are in St. Louis, it looks like there's a National Historical Landmark. And so now they're honoring a man who was buried in a pauper's grave. He even has a star. St. Louis Walk of Fame, they gave him a star. So after his death in 1917, Joplin's music and ragtime in general waned in popularity as new forms of music styles such as jazz. Okay. So now we got the jazz bands coming up, and reawakening or renaissance. Again, we read through that. But I wanted to read that this man also got, let me see if I could find it here. I think it's the NPR article, All Things Considered. Let me go to All Things Considered. You're going to hang out for a little while longer, because this is, to me, who done it and why. Let's go to the NPR piece. And it was something to do with his getting patents. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this was in, oh, for Black History Month. Oh, NPR. So this was in February of this year. Lara Downs. Okay, look at this picture, and it's a lot to the music of ragtime. They had something dancing that went along with ragtime, and this is called cakewalking. It was like a cakewalk. So you could kind of get an idea of all of the pageantry and things that went along with this style of music. So something called marching and cakewalk has something about it. Okay, so look at the styling of these people. Like I said, they were making their own clothing. A lot of them, they had their own seamstresses. So they were performing the cakewalk. All right, so here is another narrative that people remember playing if you learn piano, somebody who's writing this article piece, she's saying that she remembers learning this. Joplin wrote The Entertainer in 1902 at the dawn of a new century. That year, President Theodore Roosevelt rode through the streets of Hartford, Connecticut in an electric automobile. Okay? This is a time when they had electric cars. The first movie theater opened in Los Angeles, and J.C. Penney launched his first store in Kemmerer, Wyoming. So we have John Steinbeck and Ansel Adams. They were contemporary artists around that time. This is a dancer lady. And let's see. So it's going. Okay, so leaving his indelible mark on the 20th century, Joplin was an innovator. So he was innovative and irregular rhythms, nuanced harmony, a language that defined the trajectory of American music. His short life is almost a case study in the transformations of his time. He was born in Northeast Texas just 4 years after Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, one of the first Black Americans born into the promise of freedom. A natural born musician, Joplin absorbed a wide mix of influences. From the plantation melodies his parents played on the violin and banjo, then to the classical training they say he got from that German teacher. Okay, by the time Joplin was in his teens in the 1880s, he was making a living as a musician, shaping a brand new American sound. So they go again to the Chicago World's Fair, where Joplin had a band that performed, but he was not allowed to go to the World's Fair. He had to be in wherever because they didn't have Black people at the World's Fairs. Okay. Chicago, they had 27 million people come to this Chicago Columbian Exposition. So out of the 27 million people, Black people were not allowed. Do you hear this whole thing here? Okay. So he had his own band. Ragtime introduced mainstream America to the simple but radical trick of syncopation in rhythm. That displacement of the beat, which causes a propulsion and a swinging of the hips, a feeling that anything might happen. Joplin's innovations in ragtime laid the foundation for much of the 20th century American music, which would be blues, jazz, swing, then R&B, and rock and roll. I'm sorry for everybody, all you rock and rollers. This is where your music came from, all right? There you are. So it's going through how much he contributed, but I want to get to the part where it talks about his girl code. Hey, welcome, sis. Hey there. So glad you're here. Oh, how are you? So, yeah, I want to get to that one that talks about, hold it. I want to talk about these because this is interesting, this narrative. Something is just so wrong with it, as you know already. Something is not making sense here. Okay, so okay, I wrote notes on it. Okay, so Scott Joplin published, this is kind of a recap. He published independently. He became famous. He got a copyright in 1899 for his Maple Leaf Rag. So the US Copyright Department issued a copyright in 1899 for his Maple Leaf Rag. He started his own opera company in 1902. He got another copyright for The Entertainer, and I think he got one for Tremonisha. So he sold his music as he was writing, composing, and publishing his music. He sold it as sheets of music. So this was how he was able. It's like selling your tapes out of the trunk of the car. You heard about how a lot of guys did that in the early days of hip hop and rap. They sold their own CDs and cassettes out of the trunk of their car. So this is similar in that way of thinking, is that he was selling his own sheet music. You could put the sheet music in those upright pianos, you know what I'm saying? So everybody, they say, in Negro culture in America had sheets of his music. So it would be interesting to go back and see. Let me make sure I'm gathering all of this information that I wanted to. I think that was it. Tell me what you're thinking, what's going on. Nobody could accuse me of being hateful right now. This is not hate speech. I want to just reiterate that I don't hate anybody. If that is something that people might think, I am looking at narratives that do not make sense, and I am asking the questions because something is not right. And it is obvious that something is not right. So let me make sure I had everything that I wanted to cover. Yeah. Okay. So in 1899, it even has the date, September 18th, 1899, Scott Joplin granted copyright for his Maple Leaf Rag, the most famous ragtime composition by the U.S. Copyright Office. In December 29, 1902, Scott Joplin got copyrights for The Entertainer and several other piano rag compositions through the U.S. Copyright Office. So not only that, he had several piano rag compositions, and he got it all copyrighted. In 1972, January 27th, 1972, they had a world premiere of Scott Joplin's rediscovered opera, Tremonisha, at Morehouse College in Atlanta. In 1973, The Sting, directed by George Roy Hill, starring Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and music inspired by Scott Joplin, premiered in Los Angeles and New York and won Best Picture in 1974. In 1975, Scott Joplin's opera Tremonisha closes at the Uris Theater in New York City after 64 performances. Okay, so going back to the narrative, they said that Mr. Scott Joplin could not get Tremonisha fully staged. But in 1975, Tremonisha closed at a theater in New York City, and they had 64 performances. Not to mention, I'm sure, other things that were made off of that. So this is not hatred. These are receipts, okay? These are receipts. And I am going to look into putting together something to get redress in the Supreme Court. Looking into this as a crime. And I'm very offended that this man was buried in the way that he was buried? If this is the father of ragtime music, why was he in an asylum? See, there are a lot of crimes that have happened, and there's a lot of money that was made off of this man's music. So this needs to have redress, and we need to know who the family members are of Scott Joplin. I don't know, because they say it says he had a lot of relatives in terms of siblings. Now, I did not read that he had any children. So I don't know what happened, what transpired, but I know that God Almighty is unfolding. And a lot of this is like a tangled web, for people that knit and crochet, that you have to have a lot of patience to untangle something. And I like untangling things, everyone. I do. I love to untangle things. And, the kind of hair that I have to untangle it. Like, this is kinky hair, curly, whatever. And, you have to be patient when you're working through this kind of hair. It's a patience, a process of untangling. And I have the patience, okay? I have the patience for it. I just need other people to join in. If you know somebody that would like to get something put together to take to the Supreme Court, we need people to research into the American Music Trust. Now, Kanye West is I don't know who he is, what he's doing, but I know, like I said, that he is opening the conversation up. And we see what's happening as a result. I don't know if it's controlled opposition. I'm not real sure. I don't know. Kyrie Irving, just right after we had our last live stream, Kyrie Irving, and they let it hit the New York Post at night. So somebody submitted the article at night. So Kyrie is now being accused of being an anti-Semite because he did something and shared something from a movie on Amazon, and it's on Amazon. And it's some type of movie that talks about the darker Hebrews. And you see what's happening. He's so-called in trouble. But the thing that I'm concerned about when you look at this movie on Amazon that is supposed to be talking about the darker Hebrews and things like that, there is a cover and it has the fist. Remember I had talked about the fist? Whenever I see the fist, I have a red flag now, because the fist is black. It is under the dead black hand. Okay, so we're talking about that dead, mortis, right? Mortimer, mortgage. So we're talking about death. And the black fist of death that you see in revolutionary movements, it comes out of the Marxist socialist playbook. So I'm not sure if we have this is what I'm just going to say it like I feel. I don't know what these people are truly doing, but I feel that it could be possible that somebody could be controlled opposition to kind of throw sort of like a little misdirection for those that are starting to wake up to some truths and be on the right path, but to kind of misdirect a little bit. I'm not sure. But I'm being very careful when I observe what's happening, because it does say in the word that even the very elect could be fooled in these times of great deception. So I want to be cautious. I think it's good that it's opening up the discussion. I'm finding a lot of information right now, a lot. Stuff that I'm stumbling on that is shocking. He had several wives. Yeah. So somebody out of the several wives, it's got to be something that can be tracked to somebody from his bloodline. I don't see how these people outside of his family have rediscovered his lost work in 1970, and now they monetized it. They were able to put it on Broadway. And how is that? So I foresee that what is going to come out of this is these things are going to open up. This is a cold case, and this is the American Music Trust. This is very important. And again, going back to Kanye and Kyrie, both K's. I mean, you got and then he's married to the Kardashian. Well, he's not married anymore. Is he? I don't know. Kardashian with all the K's. I don't know. I'm making all these connections. But I wonder, like, Kanye and Kyrie, are they positioning them to kind of look like the runaway slaves, right? Running away from the plantation, headed to the Underground Railroad? I don't know what we're looking at. What do you think? Kyrie and Kanye. They're kind of popping off at the same time, and they're both being accused of being anti-Semites, anti-Semitic. So some people have a theory that this is the way to get out of the contracts, to get out of those soul contracts. I don't know. If it is, it's brilliant. Have them fire you, right? But I'm not sure. Not sure. So time will tell what we're dealing with, discernment and prayer, right? So that we will not be deceived. But one thing I know what I'm looking at with the research that I'm doing, because there is also a discernment, because I'm led to this stuff. And I want to decode a lot of it. I want justice. I want redress for the people of America. And we're going to find out what's really been going on and who has been doing this, who is behind it. Because a man like this to die at 48 of syphilitic dementia and be buried from being put in an asylum. An asylum was what I also read early on. If anybody has the connection, the link, I initially in my research read that the asylums had a lot of Black people, because they said the Black people were more mentally ill because they were religious. So they were put in asylums, they said. So I found that once and I can't find it again. I've been looking. If you have any information, I do have a book that I have been, let me show you this book. I'm going to read this book eventually. It's one of the many things I have to do, but I'll share this book with you. The title of it, bear with me a moment, but it's something I came across. If anybody wants to get this book, I downloaded it. So I don't have the actual, I like to have the actual book in my hand, but for this one, I did download it. All right. What is it? Where is it? But it deals with the asylums from the 1800s. Maybe I could do it this way. Let's see. Bear with me, please. That's not it. Where else would I find it? Darn it. Oh, okay. Where else would I have it? It's tagged and everything. But hold it. Okay, wait a minute. You know what I'll do? Lori says, I did my psych rotation in an asylum when you were in nursing school. Really? Ooh. We had a real spooky asylum in Philadelphia called Byberry. Remember all those scary asylums? And they closed them down. They said that Ronald Reagan closed down all the asylums. Okay, let me see. What is this author's name? Oh, wait a minute. I know, because I sent the book to somebody in a text message, so I could just pull that up. Okay, so thanks for hanging out for this first edition. I'm going to be covering more of this as the days go by, because now let me pull it up and just show you, because if you want to get the book, I want to do so many things. Like, I'd love to read the book and do a book club, but it would have to be Goniver. Her name is Wendy Goniver. Okay, here it is. Wendy Goniver, images. Okay, this is the book. Oh no, that's not the best. Oh, this is probably a good. No. All right, 1 minute. I'm trying to get a big enough picture of it so that Wendy Goniver. So the writer's name is Wendy Goniver, and this is called The Particular Institution. A Particular Institution. I'll show you the cover of the book. Modern psychiatry. Modern psychiatry. Okay, let me get this one for you all to see. Yeah, penitentiaries as well. Yeah. All right, so this one is, just want to show you some images so you can get an idea of the penitentiary, what might have been going on. Here is, okay. Did it come up? All right. Okay. Hey there, Mary. Welcome. So nice to have you here. Oh, thank you. Give Mary some love. Beautiful Mary. You said Bedlam. Yes, is a good asylum movie. Oh, okay. I'll have to check that out. Thank you. Bedlam. Interesting. Okay, so I want you to get a look, and I want to see what you think. If you say so, if you, like I said, if you see something, say something. So this is the book called Modern Psychiatry. So this is the Asylum Times. So this is the book that I got. I want you to see how the asylum people were, they captured pictures of them. Kind of looks like they could have a nice sample of people to do experiments on, right? Does it kind of look that way to you? Look at all these people from the asylums. So the thing that got Scott Joplin put in an asylum was that he was suffering from tertiary syphilis, which resulted in dementia before he was 50 years old. So I want you to get a look at the asylums, how these people were, I guess, booked. It looks like they were being booked, right? Booked and given a number. That kind of looks a little bit like I don't know. I know some people would be mad if I said a Holocaust, right? But it does look like the kind of things you see when people are put in camps of some sort. They call them asylums, but Kind of look like camps, maybe. Yeah, given numbers. Look at this man here. Looks like they were doing some experiments on him, doesn't it? Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Hey, Soul, Yeshua, welcome. Welcome. Thank you for coming by. I know it's not the most pleasant topic, but you know, we gotta look into this stuff and sort this narrative out, because something's not adding up here. Something is not adding up here. So I just wanted to give you an idea of the asylums and how a person can be put in an asylum based on being sick. They put them in like I guess a prison too. But this to me is a prison camp. This looks like a prison camp indeed. So this is more of the imagery. Sorry, penitentiaries and things like that. This is what we're dealing with. Even young children. Yeah, young children as well. So yeah, that's it for now. Not the most pleasant subject. I get it. But when people are being accused of being anti-Semitic and they're just basically sharing things that don't make sense, I think we should be able to talk about these things without being called hateful, because Scott Joplin deserved better. He deserved better. And I think that anybody who feels led to it, if you want to start some research, I think that this should become a group project for people who are concerned. And this should go to the Supreme Court. This should go to the Supreme Court. And there should be redress, because this is the American Music Trust. And there's been some crimes committed. And I don't care about giving him awards after he's been, long gone. That's not enough. That's not enough. This was a disgrace to do to this man, this American man. And God is not going to continue. These people are not going to continue. God is not going to allow this to happen anymore. These resets and these games that get played and these banking shenanigans and things, it's not going to continue. It's not. It's over. The jig is up. Okay. We see what we see, and we discern also. We don't need to have anybody tell us anything. We see what we're seeing. I don't know about you. I'm getting a lot of downloads, a lot. So I believe that this is a time where, for those who have an ear to hear and an eye to see, you know what we're looking at. And again, it's not going to continue to be hidden. We need to know. We need to know. And this man deserves justice. He deserves justice. So maybe I'll play this on the way out. I know it's a heavy topic. All righty. So that was a little bit of some of Scott Joplin's music. And you didn't hear it? Oh, sorry. I turned my mic off. No sound. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me right now. I turned my mic off for a minute, but you can't hear me. No sound right now? Yikes. Maybe I'll shut some of these windows that I have open. Maybe it's overwhelmed. Now you can hear me. Sound is back. It cut out. Were you able to hear some of that music that I played? Tell me, was it because I turned my mic, but it's back? Okay. All right. Well, again, Scott Joplin is a good place to start when we look at the American Music Trust and what's happened, especially the contracts. Again, like going back to what Kanye is doing right now. Kanye is shining light on the contracts and what has happened to the publishing and the labels and what is really happening to the music trust and the people, the artists. Are they being fairly compensated? Are they able to hand a legacy to their families? Who is benefiting from the American Music Trust? How are they benefiting and why? And, a lot of people have been fighting for this. We've heard about what happened to Prince when he fought Warner Brothers. We had Michael Jackson expose Tommy Mottola, right? And we've had who else? So Prince and Michael Jackson. I would say Nipsey Hussle was probably exposing a lot of the music industry as well. He went independent, but as soon as he got caught up with Jay-Z and that crowd, then next thing we know, he's dead. So I'm just saying something is weird, okay? So it's best to stay independent, but when people have the power of distribution, that is where we got a problem. Distribution should not be controlled by a small group of people. Distribution and a person being able to get their music or anything, their art out to the people. We need to fight for grassroots and independent art. And Anita Baker, thank you. Anita Baker fought for her publishing. And yeah, and a lot of these people have died penniless. And that is a disgrace. There are people who have fought like Michael Jackson. When he got the Sony catalog, Michael Jackson gave publishing back to people like, I believe, Little Richard and maybe some other. I know it was a few. Sly, remember Sly and the Family Stone? Sly was living in like a camper or something. He was destitute. I believe he received his royalties and his publishing back. I think Michael Jackson may have had something to do with it, possibly. Michael Jackson was able to help a lot of musicians. A lot of people don't know that. He gave their publishing back to them. So it's terrible what's happened to a lot of people. But again, justice will come. And we need more people to care about this, okay? So again, I will be praying and doing whatever I can to create research and writing things and documentation of things that I find. I think redress needs to go through the Supreme Court. We need financial justice for a lot of people who are still alive and their heirs are still alive. They deserve financial justice, and that will happen, okay? The meek shall inherit the earth. There is a great wealth transfer at hand. And the people that have taken ill-gotten gain, they are not enjoying it. They are not enjoying it. That's what we need to know. They have not enjoyed it throughout this short run that they've had. It has caused them many sorrows, okay? And their children hate them, okay? I'll repeat that. These people who have stolen, who have gotten ill-gotten gains, they have not enjoyed them in peace. Their children hate them. Isn't that something? Was it worth it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? So hopefully people who are trying to get out of these contracts, I pray that they can get out of them. They can gain their soul back, because I believe that can happen, okay? So people who believe that people can sell their soul and they're forever gone, I don't believe that. I believe that redemption can happen for anybody who reaches and wants it. Okay, the enemy and these people that own these labels and whatever, they don't have the ultimate power over anybody. So we know that God Almighty is bringing a rod of correction. The law will be the only way to stand upright and to be restored and to enjoy the Jubilee, because not everybody wants to be a part of the Jubilee. This is a choice. So the best is yet to come. Some of it is uncomfortable to learn until we get to that Jubilee, but this is the part of the part of this time that we live in. We need to have mental toughness. That's something that I've been, really getting a lot of coaching with, mental toughness. And, my mentor, Chris, he's been wonderful. I'm actually missing something right now, but I didn't know that this would go over. This is very near and dear to my heart. When I learned about Scott Joplin, I just want to share this. And I want it to be timely, because we're in times right now where people are being attacked. And I don't know if this is just a ploy to make people shut down and be afraid that people can turn your money off and they can deplatform you and take your social credit score away. You won't be allowed to eat or listen. I believe that they have run out of every card to play. They are not in this kind of power over God's people. That's right. The last shall be first. So they're running out of steam. They're trying tired, desperate tricks to buy more time. But that's right, CWS. All that was done in the dark will be brought to the light. And they cannot hide behind their typical propaganda. They're losing and taking L's everywhere. So they're not going to be able to continue this like gaslighting of the public, of we the people. And as the people wake up to their true identity and they cry out for reclassification, our kinsman redeemer is on the way. And everybody that was done wrong, it's all, justice is here. It's coming. And just think, the Supreme Court, I know that a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in it, but that is where a lot of redress is going to happen, okay, moving forward, the Supreme Court. So thank you for joining again for this edition of a crime mystery involving Mr. Scott Joplin, the entertainer, yes, of American music. Ragtime that became the father of all music genres, basically jazz, everything swing, the blues, rock and roll. It all came out of ragtime, Mr. Scott Joplin, okay? Self-taught, taught by his parents. I will not let anyone take credit away from his parents who taught him music. It was not some German teacher who came in and gave this man the education. It was his parents. Yes, to be continued, because it's going to get into more. We'll get into more of the musicians and what happened to their estates, what happened to their legacies, who profited. We're going to name names like I've named names right here. We're not afraid to name names. We don't have to hide behind anything. Joshua Rifkin and Marvin Hamlish. They benefited from this man's music trust, his property. He has copyrights on this music. I know copyrights don't last forever, but still, something happened in the 1800s. He got the copyrights in 1899. That's when he started getting the copyrights from the U.S. Copyright Office. So yes, so thank you so much, everyone. If I've missed you, please, please, please forgive me. Thank you for stopping by. And I will, continue to bring more of this so that we can have dialogue and we can figure this out together, because we're all going to be blessed to know the truth. The truth will set us free. It will make a lot of us angry. And some people are not going to ever embrace truth. And that's okay. That's okay. Nobody needs to be convinced. Okay. So again, let me put this banner here. Contact me on the socials. That was the wrong banner. Sorry. Contact me on the socials. If you are on Facebook, I'm publicly on Facebook under JennyEason Washington. On Instagram, as Paul Romano says, I'm on Instagram as JennyEason or Jenny the John. Hit me up if you want a complimentary review set up for you. If some people are about to they're coming into some of this transfer of wealth. A lot of us need an education before you put your hands on wealth, so that you will not lose it, but you will secure it and protect it, so that you have a legacy to hand down to your family. So if you need information, you need education, and you want to set up a one-on-one to discuss things and ask questions, it is complimentary. This is for the rest of us. Whereas the 1%, they have all their analysts and advisors, but this is for the people. Okay. So you can look to me as a resource. If you know anybody who needs help, maybe somebody sued a hospital because they forced them to take a vaccine and they lost their job. Okay. Some people are getting redress on things like that, and they're getting back pay. So if somebody gets 3 years of back pay, they may not know what to do with it at one time. So we need wisdom and education. Okay. So set up a time and get your answers to your questions, and send people my way, referrals. This is complimentary. It really is. Okay. It is all about education and helping we the people in this great time of wealth transfer. Okay. So the best is yet to come. I want you all to stay encouraged and, look at these narratives in a different way and discern what is going on right now. What is going on? I think I saw Mrs. Bernadette. Thanks for coming by, Bernadette. Hey, Johnny Borealis. You're welcome. Thank you. I love it when you hear, hey, Bernadette, love you, sis. God bless you in New York. And anybody else who is still here, I want to thank you for hanging out for a long one. Okay. Bless you all. Love you. May see you. I don't know what day. It's going to be kind of with me and my new schedule. I said I have to kind of do it like a pop-up. Okay. Very improvisational. But thank you for being patient as I am settling into a more like a different kind of schedule. I'm getting used to it. And thank you for the patience as I want to continue to open a space and keep it for us here and bring information as it comes to me so we can discuss it and you can share what you're picking up on. So if you do get any downloads later after hearing this about Scott Joplin, please drop it in the comments. Okay. And I appreciate it. I do read the comments. I've been locked out of my My main YouTube page, I can't get into it right now. So I'm working out something to get into that main one. So I'm able to put videos on it, but I can't get inside the back part of the channel. So yeah. Um yeah. You need Joyce, just hit me up if you want to talk about just getting some answers, asking questions, okay? And you're in good hands, okay? Just hit me up and we can schedule something one-on-one, okay? If you have questions, all right? And that goes for anybody, all right? Okay, that's it. Until next time, love you all, and we will continue to keep our mental toughness as we learn. Some of these are very inconvenient truths, aren't they? But it's okay. We're going to be just fine. All right. Take care. Thank you.